This video is to serve as a technique and a theory primer for the Maiden Voyage song, which is by Herbie Hancock. We'll talk a little bit more about the form of Maiden Voyage here in a second. So a primer is kind of like one of those books that you give like a kid that's learning a subject that just kind of like helps prepare their mind for some of the more difficult lessons in the subject by giving them kind of a simple walkthrough or layout of some of the basic ideas. So that's what this video is meant to do. Now, with that being said, what I really want to focus on in this video first is the form of this song. So what we'll see here is I have a little picture with colors here, and each color is a chord symbol of the song. And notice I've got the colors arranged by phrase. So we'll say this A phrase, this A part of the form, is this D9 sus chord, followed by this F9 sus chord, and then that repeats to another A form. And then we move on to the B section, or the bridge, which has this E flat 9 sus chord with a C sharp minor 9 chord in that green. And then we go and we finish the form by playing the A again. So the form of this song, you could say, is A, A, B, A. Okay, so now that we know the form, let's break down a little closer and look at this chord. These chords that we see. There's two types of chords that we see. This first chord is a sus chord. That's kind of its name. This 9 sus 4 thing, that's a common chord in modal music especially. But we're just going to call them a sus chord, because when people talk about it, that's what they say. That's a sus chord. So the formula for a D9 sus 4 chord, you have a root, which is the 1, the D. The 9, or the 2, is the same thing as the E. The sus 4 means that the sus means we don't have a third. We have a fourth instead. So we don't have any kind of F in this chord. It's a G, because it's a fourth. Then we have a perfect fifth, which is in most chords, unless they tell you it's not. And then a dominant 7 or a flat 7 as our C. Now, here's what I want to do. This sus chord is a kind of harmony called a quartal harmony. And we'll explore why it's called a quartal harmony in a second. But first, look at this A minor pentatonic. Notice it's the same 5 notes, just ordered in a different order. But all 5 notes in the D9 sus chord are also available in that A minor pentatonic scale. So a good kind of cheat, especially for those of you who really know the minor pentatonic scale and can use it very easily, is just go to the 5th of a sus chord and play that pentatonic. We talked a little bit in the earlier lesson when we covered the minor pentatonic scale. You know, actually one of the modes of the minor pentatonic scale, I named the sus pentatonic because exactly this reason. So if you missed that, go ahead and go back and watch that lesson on minor pentatonic scales. Now, moving on. Another kind of chord we see in here is this minor 9. And in jazz, when you see a minor 9 chord, 90% of the time, that's almost symbiotic with the Dorian mode. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later. So before we get to practicing some scales, I want to talk about the minor pentatonic scale and its relation to the Dorian mode. So, we know the A minor pentatonic scale. If we compare it right next to the Dorian, we'll see it has the same notes, except the Dorian has a second, the B, and an F sharp in its 6th note. And notice the minor pentatonic is missing those notes. But the Dorian, because it's so related to the minor pentatonic, I thought it would be helpful to show this before I show the next bit. So now what we have here is kind of like a grid that shows the A Dorian mode, but also what major scale it comes from, the G major scale. And essentially what we have here is kind of like a slide rule of the relative modes of the G major scale. This can be really helpful for several reasons. when we're playing over chords in jazz, especially stuff like modal jazz, where the sounds and the chords are really open. They're very, in this case, these quartal sounds stacked in fourths. So I'm going to show you that real quick. So one thing about these sus4 chords is that we could literally build them if we wanted to, starting off of a single note with ascending fourths. So the way you would do that, actually, is you would start on an E, and you could spell E, A, D, G, and a C. So with that kind of spelling, we can get this really cool A minor pentatonic scale. Now, another way you could do it is you could have stacked fifths, because fifths and fourths are like inversions. You could have started on a C major scale, and you could have stacked a C, a fifth up to G, up to D, up to A, and then E. And that could have got you a C minor pentatonic scale, which is the same thing as an A minor pentatonic scale. So fourths or fifths, whichever way you go, you're working the same thing. But that just kind of shows like this kind of like harmonic relationship as it relates to this minor pentatonic scale. It's really cool, or major pentatonic scale, the relative of that. So just some little bit of a theory nuggets there. But really what we're looking for here is the fact that we have all these options of either minor pentatonic scales or modes of the major scale to use over this. So let's get started and let's practice and start to put some of this together. So over the first chord here, this D9 sus4, and we know this A Dorian works really good. And that's why that chord is abbreviated in the book as like A minor 7 over a D bass note. Because really it's kind of trying to find the Dorian kind of cutting through for you to help you out. So let's play this A Dorian. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now this D Mixolydian, because it belongs to the same family of scales as G key center. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the G major one. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. Just a quick note, when you practice scales, you're really trying to do three things. Number one, just learn the fingering and learn the pattern of the scale. Learn the interval content of the scale. The stuff that's on the fretboard. That's the first thing that you want to do. The second thing is working on the technique. And when I work on technique, I don't focus so much on the speed, but I focus more on just playing at some even speed and connecting the notes in a real legato and smooth kind of way. That way I know the synchronization between my left and my right hand is perfectly together. And then the third thing that I like to work on when I work on scales is just the awareness of how they relate back to some chord or some like musical example. And so we have that here. Okay, so let's do the same thing. Let's do it all up an octave. Here's A Dorian. 1, 2, 3, 4. D Mixolydian. 1, 2, 3, 4. And finally G major. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so now that's how you can use this kind of this G major family of scales to play over this D9 sus chord. That's kind of, they all belong together. These are all good options to use over that chord. But really that 2-5-1 situation there with the Dorian, Mixolydian, and the major will help you find just kind of the overlay of those G major notes on the fretboard really well. But now let's talk about another option, which is the blues scale. Now the blues scale and the minor pentatonic scale are so close to the same thing that it goes to be said you can use the minor pentatonic or blues scale. The blues scale just has a little more color because it adds that extra note. Now, you see we're going to have the A, the B, and the E blues scale to use as options over this D9 sus4 chord. And here's why. In any major scale family, right? In this case, G major scale, because this is the parent scale that this comes from, the 2, the 3, and the 6, you'll notice are all minor because they're lowercase. That 7 doesn't count because it has a little circle superscript that stands for diminished. So we're just concerned with the 2, the 3, and the 6. You can play a minor pentatonic scale naturally within all three of those, 2, 3, and 6, no matter what major key you're in. So that's why I picked A, 2, B, which is 3, and E, which is 6, to study. Let's look at this A blues scale in 2 octaves. Pay attention to the shifts. Basically what I do is I slide my finger to get to the 2nd octave, and you can learn all about that in the minor pentatonic video scale that I covered earlier. But here we go. Here's this A blues scale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's B blues. 1, 2, 3, 4. And finally, here's our E blues scale. I'm playing it down an octave. 1, 2, 3, and... Okay, so all those ideas will come back in the video when we work on the improvisation and start to put these chords and connect them together. But for right now, I just want to kind of throw them out there because they'll help you. Now let's go on and look at the next chord the same way. So if we compare D9 to F9 sus4, everything in F9 sus4 is going to be 3 frets higher, or minor third up. That makes sense because F is a minor third higher than D. So you'll notice all of our scale options here are literally the same options that we had because they're both 9 sus chords. They're both sus chords, but they're in different spots. So you'll see all these notes will be a minor third higher. Here we go. Here's C Dorian. 1, 2, 3, and... Here's F Mixolydian. 1, 2, 3, 4. And here's B flat major. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, here's a C Dorian in a different spot on the fretboard. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's F Mixolydian, lower. 1, 2, 3, 4. And here's B flat major. 1, 2, 3, 4. So those will help you combine all those B flat major key center notes on the fretboard, help you visualize those notes really good so we can use them over that F9 sus eventually. Now let's look at some of the minor pentatonic / blues scales. So we know in the B flat parent scale family, we have 2 would be C, 3 would be D, and 6 will be G. So those are our minor pentatonics. Let's go through those. Here's the C blues. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, here is the D blues scale. 1, 2, 3, 4. And here is G blues scale. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so now the next chord is E flat 9 sus, which is a half step above the first one that we had, that D9 sus. So all of these are going to be a half step up higher than where we came. So all of these scales are going to come from our A flat major scale family, because A flat is a half step above G, that first scale family. So here's this B flat Dorian. 1, 2, 3, 4. E flat Mixolydian. 1, 2, 3, 4. And A flat major. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's the same stuff up an octave. 1, 2, 3, 4. E flat Mixolydian. 1, 2, 3, 4. And A flat major. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now here are the 2, the 3, and the 6 of that A flat, the B flat, C, and F respectively. Let's play those blues scales. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's the C blues scale. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the F blues scale. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then finally, our last scale bits all come from the C sharp minor 9, or really this is kind of a C sharp Dorian. So we got to think about this one a little bit differently. Now, we get to start right on the Dorian this time because it tells us what the name is. So these are all actually come from the B major key center, which makes sense because Dorian is the second of the B, so C sharp is the second of B major. Let's play these. Here we go. C sharp Dorian. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's F sharp Mixolydian. 1, 2, 3, 4. And B major. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here it is in a different fingering. 1, 2, 3, 4. F sharp mixolydian. 1, 2, 3, 4. And here's B major. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so the 2, 3, and 6 of the B major key center things are going to be C sharp, D sharp, and G sharp respectively. Let's go through those. Here's the C sharp blues scale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's the D sharp or E flat. 1, 2, 3, 4. And here's the G sharp blues scale. 1, 2, 3, 4. So in review, the helpful things you're going to learn from this video are 1, the form of this piece. Number 2, how the sus chord is kind of built theoretically. You can start basically saying that it's a inversion essentially of a minor pentatonic scale, and a minor pentatonic scale is really just a major pentatonic scale. So A minor pentatonic would be like C major pentatonic, and you can build that scale by just stacking fifths. C, G, D, A, E. Perfect fifths. Get you that major pentatonic. Then you can start on the A to get the minor pentatonic, and then you can reorder the notes starting on the D to get this D9 sus chord. So that little bit. The third thing that you want to remember is that the minor pentatonic scales can be found on the 2, 3, and the 6 of your major scale families, okay? And that also don't forget that the minor pentatonic is kind of related to like either those 2, 3, or 6 because it has those notes. And the Dorian is really kind of like the one that we want to find and think through. And the reason is the Dorian is a very special mode. Let me teach you something about the Dorian mode real quick. So all these modes that are based off the major scale are also known like the diatonic modes. So this is an old Greek thing. The word diatonic basically comes from this pattern that is a whole step, then a half step. So like if we're thinking like in the key of C, it'd be like C, D, E, F. So that's like the bottom. And then if you look at the next 4 notes in the C major scale, G, A, B, C, you'll see that those patterns are the same too. Whole, half. So diatonic means that we're making 2 of these patterns of those whole halves. Di meaning 2. So yeah, that's where that comes from. And then the Dorian scale is an amazing scale because when you compare the intervals of it from left to right or right to left, they're symmetrical. They kind of fold in on itself. And that's what makes the scale considered to have what's called maximal evenness, which is a really cool term to describe the Dorian mode inside of this major scale. So take all that, just learn that, use that just kind of like pique your interest and your brain, get familiar with the technique of these scale patterns and these intervals, and they will help you on the next 2 lessons as we learn more with Maiden Voyage.